It's April. Spring has returned to the plains. I'm standing here at the border between Oklahoma and Kansas. It was here where the wagons pulled by teams of oxen, mules, and horses crossed 173 years ago. The wind still carries the sounds heard by those adventure seekers. And when I let my imagination carry me back, I can almost see the wagon trains rolling over these hills. 10 years before, many of these travelers had been forced from their homes in Georgia, the Carolinas, Alabama, and Tennessee. Some 60,000 people from the 5 civilized tribes, as they were known. About 12,000 were Cherokee, and of that number, 4,000 died on the way to Oklahoma, then known generically as Indian Territory. That began in 1839, and it's known to history as the Trail of Tears. This is 10 years later. Now the Cherokee had established a new national government. Now there was exciting news coming from the West. Now there was a promise of new wealth, better life. Gold had been discovered in California. Lots of gold. The Cherokee had decided to explore the news and see what it might do for themselves. They commissioned a group of men equipped with what they would need to make the long journey and invited neighbors from Missouri and Arkansas to join them. They rendezvoused at the Grand Saline, now around Salina, Oklahoma, and the combined wagon train started north. After 2 days, they arrived here. The land wasn't much different than what they knew in Oklahoma. Rolling hills, the Verdigris River meandered along their path. They rode along the ridges as much as possible. There must have been great excitement among the travelers. They had come to Indian Territory across a trail of tears. They were traveling now along a trail of dreams. This is the Cherokee Trail, and this was the beginning. Good morning. Well, this is where it starts. I'm here at the Oklahoma border. That's Oklahoma right there. That's Kansas right there. The sun's coming up. Beautiful, beautiful day. A little cool. It's feels cooler than I'd have thought. It's 37 degrees right now, and but it'll warm up pretty quick as the sun comes up. Start out by going up this county road, and then just up here a piece I'll cut across a couple of sections that I have permission to go across. According to the journals, the wagons tried to stay on the ridges between water. It gave them the advantage of being able to see further into the distance. That may have been so that they could see any dangers ahead of them. But that's the way they traveled. And they got to this area of Tyro, about 20 miles, and that was their first encampment. After that, they continued northwest to where, years later, the Ingalls family would set up, and they would set up a homestead here in Osage territory. Here's one of the old prairie one-room schoolhouses. Wonder how many students went to school there and how many of their descendants still live in this area. This is the most unique trail I've ever hiked. To even call it a trail is somewhat optimistic. It was a trail, but now it's more of a landmark. Literally, the thousands of wagons that traveled along this way marked the land. And I'll show you the swells and ruts cut into the land more than 170 years ago, marks so visible that they can be seen from space. Swells are these long depressions made in the ground by the wheels of heavy wagons digging into the earth as they constantly roll along the trail. And over time, erosion washed away the soil between those tracks and formed these dips that reveal the paths of those migrant movements. How many wagons made their way up this trail from 1849 to 1861? I can only speculate. Laura Ingalls Wilder wrote that she watched more than 100 wagons a day passing along this way. Gold was not the only incentive. Some sought new land to develop, new business opportunities, new lives to start. Others had darker ambitions and looked to prey on the weaker, the less able to defend themselves. Things never change. Every generation has dreams, some good, some not. Charles and Caroline Ingalls left Missouri to settle here in 1871. This was still Osage country at the time. They made their home in a little cabin on this vast prairie. Laura Ingalls wrote about their lives in her series Little House on the Prairie. Her tales were made into a popular TV show by the same name. My family enjoyed listening to my wife read the books to us as we traveled from one Army assignment to the other. And we enjoyed watching the shows. My wife and daughters were born here in Kansas. I'm the foreigner, born and raised in Alabama. Regardless of where we grew up or when we lived, we share a common dream for better lives. Remembering that, perhaps we can be a little more forgiving, a little more accepting, a little more kind to one another. Had a buddy. Yeah, you're a good dog. Yes, you are. But you need to go home now. So I'm going to go on back. Went up into these ridges and they transited the tops of these Chautauqua hills. Then went over the Chautauquas and into the Flint Hills as they continue to transit northwest toward the Santa Fe Trail. It's really difficult to be out here and see the signs without them being overlaid by, you know, the immigrants that moved into here, the buildings, the roads, all transit and crisscross the trail, sort of almost camouflaging it, obliterating it, and it makes it very hard to discover it again. First full day they were in Kansas territory, they camped at Pond Camp. It was near Tyro, and they had gone 20 miles. But then on Thursday they picked up from there and went to Fish Camp, which is probably near the Otter Creek, just east of Sedan in Chautauqua County. And that's where we'll head today, leaving from the Little House on the Prairie Museum
Two big old bulls out here, just grazing away. Take a look at me. Yep, you're a big old boy.
Well, just behind me here is Sorghum Hollow, or if you're from my part of the country, it's Sorghum Holler, and has absolutely nothing to do with the Cherokee Trail, except it's just a fun name. Like a lot of these, out in the Smoky Mountains, Appalachian Trail, you get all kinds of fun names of different mountains and hollers and different places. But yeah, it's the north end of Sorghum Hollow. Comes right up through there. Probably, and I don't know if you can see it in the back over there, is a ridge line. That would be more in keeping with what they would have traveled on. But I'm going up here to Beeson's farm here in just a little bit, and you can see a lot of ruts and swells there. The Beesons have invited me to drop in on them, so I'm going to try to see if they're home, and if they are, I'll do that. So let's get going. I am just south of the Beesons Ranch, and you can begin to see some of the evidence of what this trail might have been like. If you look right out through there, you can start to see the swell, and it curves around. But this thing is huge. It's very wide. I'm guessing, probably 30 yards wide, and it goes up. That's sort of northwest, and it would come on down and would have crossed the road and heading down that way. So you can see still places of it. Looks like it's going up over the rise there. But this is probably the best looking part of the trail that I've seen. You can't see it, but way out in the distance there is a deer. Whoop, 2, 3, 4, 5. A bunch of deer out there. 6. Very nice. I wish this little camera would do better. But anyway. Alright. Well, let's walk another couple of miles till we get and see the Beesons. Their second night in Kansas. They camped east of Sedan on Chautauqua, no, it's now Chautauqua County. That's where I am right now. And they called it Fish Camp. Don't know if they caught fish here. This is Otter Creek. This is the creek that they camped alongside of. I'm coming up close to where they would have been, but this is on Friday, the third day that they were in Kansas, that they left out from Fish Camp and continued northwest. So I look out through here, this prairie, just the vastness of it. What did they think? Did they, looking over the horizon and realizing that somewhere up there, somewhere out there, was another trail. A trail that they have great hopes to improve their lives, the riches, their people. So they continued on.